First of all, like while waiting, I think we can also acknowledge, I should acknowledge, like how did the Korean government did an excellent job with the NAPs and this process, I think, because with each update, they revised, they evolved, and they improved, and they also engaged, integrated the lessons learned, the monitoring and evaluation systems. I think that is a great example, actually. And I also liked it. They didn't, at some points, they took risks. They didn't go to these detailed, very complicated things. They started with what they have, and they evolved in the run, in the follow-up to the other NAPs. So I think that is an excellent approach for reporting on adaptation, because as we were discussing yesterday, the countries have given flexibility and preference to report on what you see the most important thing for you for adaptation. Because at the end, reporting this information is your story. So what do you want to say? What do you want to tell everyone on the things that you are doing in this area? So yeah, we have discussed this. Now I will, in this presentation actually, I will give more details on what is expected, what is there in the MPGs for the adaptation sector section to report on. And I also included a few examples from various countries. But we have also seen them from the last presentation, and I think I'm looking forward to hear more from the other presentations this afternoon, because we will hear, they will make a huge sense, I guess. So I first wanted to start with the slide, because this is a slide actually prepared by UNFDTU in 2020, and it gives a full like overall view of how on what to report in the BTR on adaptation. So it is like because the adaptation information can be kind of grouped in a set of things, steps, right? When you're trying to report on adaptation, first you always give some background information. So that is the first two subsections in the MPGs as well. What is your national situation? Which institutional arrangements you have to address adaptation to address climate change? What legal frameworks you have? What are the risks, the vulnerabilities, the impacts you're experiencing in your country? So that is the background. First you give a context. And then you start, okay, so this is the situation. So to respond to these, I have identified these priorities. This is my plan to implement, and these are my policies and goals. So there you also set your adaptation priorities and targets, and then you also decide on what you will start with. Because at the end, we all know adaptation to climate change, it is a huge issue. It touches upon all sectors. You will have hundreds of policies or plans and priorities. But it is also a fact that most probably you will not have all the resources to be able to address them all. So it is the good practice to start at least trying to address the most impactful, put in place the most impactful policies, or try to address the most important risks or priorities your public is facing with climate change. And then, since you will start implementing, the next thing, as we also heard from the NAP of Korea, the monitoring system. So I am implementing this, but is it really helping me? Or am I really achieving the goals I targeted for? So this is the area for a kind of a like backward looking information then, because you are analyzing and assessing the results of these policies you put in place, and then you are seeing, okay, how can I measure the progress in implementing these policies? What is the output? What are the results? So this is of the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And why do we do this? So that will be a very valuable information for me when I'm going back and try to fine-tune maybe some of the policies, or maybe to see, okay, I did very well in this. Maybe now I should look into this other area as well. It is progressing well. Let's add another priority, or let's add some other policies as well. So it is a kind of a cycle, as always, and then you evolve over time. In addition, there are also some cross-cutting sections for reporting adaptation in the BTR. This, everyone calls it loss and damage, LND. The full terminology is information related to averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage associated with climate change impacts. It is politically sensitive, that's why we always have it like this in the presentations as slides, but we call it loss and damage information. It is not new, actually, it is there for quite some time, but it is kind of a new area for everyone to have some background data and information. Yes, we are experiencing losses. Yes, we are experiencing damages, but no one has started quantifying them yet. So how do we do this? What are some methods? This is where you can put all that information. And then, of course, it would be also excellent if you can share some cooperation activities you're doing, some good practices, some experiences and lessons learned, because those can also inspire others. Because what you're experiencing is also experienced in many other countries. So what you're sharing with them will help them to come up with new ideas and inspire them as well. And also any other information related to impacts and adaptation. So this is how your adaptation chapter could look like. This is the suggested structure in the MPGs, but again, they are all should, and it is up to you to decide which information to include and which not, or any other information you deem necessary. So, a sneak peek. This is not published yet, will be published next month. We are preparing, as I explained yesterday, we are preparing the BTR synthesis report. And then from that adaptation area, I just captured a few key points here. But these are prone to, like, maybe it will be a bit fine-tuned, but this is like the gist or the sneak peek to the information we have synthesized. Like, of course, as expected, more than 80% of the countries provided adaptation information in their BTRs. That is excellent. We also saw that changes in climate and extreme weather events are having an impact on many sectors. So this is what parties have reported. They have reported they are observing impacts on all these sectors, as well as on groups such as social groups such as elderly, children, women, and indigenous people, which are often actually affected unproportionately. So it is important to address those groups as well. Parties also reported that adaptation planning efforts are taking place through various mechanisms, including in NAPs, in NDCs. As Sladiana was also explaining, you can put that information in various tools, reports, everything. And then there are also disaster risk management strategies, legislations, regulations, and subnational plans. So it is really picking up. Countries are now integrating all the adaptation information into all these tools and reports. And still though, parties reported challenges related to knowledge and technical capacity, availability or lack of it, institutional governance issues as well. But it is interesting to see that these two areas, knowledge and technical capacity and institutional governance issues, are more frequently reported than financial and technological challenges. So it's interesting because yesterday we were discussing like, where is the finance? How are we going to do that? But from the reports, we see that actually the other areas reported more frequently. It may not be the case, though, because maybe they just didn't imagine to put that information because this synthesis is from the reported information. So that's why we are suggesting you include more and more information on your adaptation needs, financial needs, and everything in the BTRs. Otherwise, they will not be captured in these synthesis reports. There's also a presentation from the synthesis as now parties are integrating their reporting on loss and damage to their national reports, reflecting a growing recognition of its importance across diverse country contexts. Please.
Just a question in terms of financial challenges. Do we have balance between developing countries submission at this stage? Just to know, background.
Yes. So BTR synthesis report is synthesizing all the BTRs. It doesn't differentiate developed and developing countries. But yeah, they will be in the full report. This is just, again, just a sneak peek into it because they are still cross-checking those details.
Report yesterday that the goal for Korea to submit BTR was to be one time, right?
Yes.
Not to stress on, for example, on financial.
Exactly.
For example, when it's come to developing countries' point of view, for example, for Kyrgyzstan or other countries, financial part would be one of the main, more prominent, at least more prominent. In that sense, we have to know the balance. And then when it's come to, if at this stage more developed countries submitted than developing, that financial might be coming to,
just the trick here,
yeah.
Developed countries are even not supposed to report on their needs. So the needs and challenges are mostly reported by developing country parties. That is also something. Yes, and I think, yeah, I can even share this feedback back with the colleagues so they can have a final look in how to capture that as well. So I also wanted to start now let's go deeper into some examples, like how countries reported various areas or various information under these various subsections, right? So the context, like the background, the policies, the impact and evaluation. So those are the main things, and we have lots of chapters. So first of all, we also heard yesterday there are various tools and options to report on adaptation. And when you actually already have an excellent document like Korean NAP, do you still need to prepare the full section? Maybe not. So this is what Trinidad did. You see, they said this is their full adaptation chapter in the BTR, half page. And they say, look guys, we already have our NAP. It is prepared and published in 2024, so recent. BTR is also due 2024, same year. And they say, it is the NAP also serves as our adaptation communication, and this is our adaptation chapter. So you see, they don't have to even copy-paste the same thing. They can just provide a link. They can say, okay, this is my adaptation chapter. Just go and look at that document. Everything is there. This is an option. So I just wanted to put it here for that. Now, let's start by section. First, national circumstances, institutional arrangements, and legal framework. So this is, as you see, a shoot area of information and examples on, for example, these reported institutional arrangements include how countries are putting together their public entities, other stakeholders, national frameworks and systems, coordination mechanisms, but also regulations, legislations, everything under this area, right? For example, this is what Grenada provided under this. Actually, they provided this at another area in the BTR because you know there is this information, the institutional arrangements, frameworks, and national circumstances. This is not only relevant to adaptation, right? You are also requested to provide this information for NDC tracking, for inventory preparation, for everything. So what Grenada did is, instead of separating these for each chapter or for each thematic area, right up front in their BTR, they had a cross-cutting chapter explaining everything, what they're doing for mitigation, for planning, for adaptation, for inventory. And here they have a National Climate Change Committee, and there are these thematic areas: adaptation and mitigation, finance and sustainable development, and international negotiations and relations. And here they also have an adaptation working group involving all the stakeholders, and they already presented this information. So they don't have to put it again in their adaptation chapter. They can only say, okay, just go and check figure whatever, 2.3, it is there. This is also done. The next area, impacts, risks, and vulnerabilities. I think actually this involves current and projected impacts, risks, right? Trends, hazards, observed and potential impacts, as well as approaches, methodologies, tools, and associated uncertainties and challenges in relation to these. What does it mean? So under this chapter, what would you put? What are you observing in terms of impacts, trends, hazards, risks, vulnerabilities? Even a bit upper level. So here, what I see from most of the countries, they are sharing their trends in terms of the temperature change, the precipitation change, all these areas, as well as, yes, including the things you have mentioned. It is up to you. So here, again, what we see, for example, we have copied this from Philippines, just a gist of it again. So they shared some climatic impact drivers, such as because they see there is temperature increase and drought, right? And there is sea level rise and extreme sea levels. There is extreme precipitation, extreme winds, and tropical cyclones. So these are expanding all the risks and all the vulnerabilities. These are the trends we are seeing, and they are actually impacting all social areas as well. So again, it's up to you. You can use different scenarios. You can come up with some findings and data. I believe you all have research institutions who are also doing a lot of work, even academia perhaps. So there is a lot of information on this. But again, be strategic. Include those ones who would make more sense when you will, in the next subsections, when you will explain your policies and other areas. So you don't have to report, copy-paste everything. Even you can refer to a research paper or some findings from other reports, and you can just include perhaps a few graphs and figures here as well. So that will give the information and the idea. From the first BTRs, I just wanted to put here, because this is what in the first BTRs we pulled out all the basic, simple, the elemental areas in trends, hazards, and impacts. And this is actually ranked. So temperature increase, it's in all BTRs. That's known. Precipitation change, it's there. Then the third thing was drought and desertification, heavy precipitation, flooding, heat waves, extreme temperature. There's also this issue, the snow, glacier, permafrost decline. This is also impacting the availability of water resources, right, for irrigation, for drinking. So it is kind of compounding. Strong winds and storms, ocean sea temperature rise. We just heard from the lady in Jeju Island how it is impacting their life. Forest fires. I think nowadays we are just seeing this every day on the news, unfortunately. Landslides, more frequent cyclones. This is especially something we are hearing from island countries. In Pacifics, they are telling, even in Caribbeans, they're telling the frequency and the intensity of the cyclones are also being more in like over the last years. So they were experiencing a cyclone every 10 years perhaps. Now they're experiencing it every 5 years. And they even cannot find time to refurbish their systems, infrastructure before getting hit by the next cyclone. So it is really having huge impacts on lives. Oops. And then here, we also put here like which areas of impact they shared, and this is again ranked. And I think agriculture, it is very easy to see. So it is again the top sector reported in the first BTRs, and then health, water resources, ecosystems, and biodiversity, infrastructure as well. Because yesterday we were discussing about the infrastructure as well. And since the frequency of the rainfall, the flooding is happening, but what are we doing? Because what I know is like for the infrastructure projects, for the rain piping systems and everything, what normally is done is you have typical plans and sections, cross sections, right, to do when you are building an infrastructure for a city. And all these typical plans are prepared for frequency and intensities we have identified maybe 50 years ago. So maybe they're not relevant. So actually we even have to change all these typical plans. I don't know if there's anyone who did that. Because no, in my country, we were still using the same C-sections for everything. And then, yes, it is flooding because the capacity of the pipe is not enough to remove and run all the water. It's unfortunately, in the inlets, they are not capable to prevent this flooding as well. So we really need to think about it even more intensely, I guess. And then another subsection. I'm checking my time as well. Okay, we're doing good. So now you had set what you're facing, what your issues are. Then now we are moving to, okay, let's have our priorities, identify our priorities, but also our progress towards achieving these priorities, addressing these priorities, and our adaptation challenges, gaps, and barriers to the adaptation. So this is an area, now you can put information on the needs, right? Because that is a barrier, that's a challenge maybe you are facing. You may have the perfect plan. If you don't have the resources, it will not be implemented. So it doesn't mean anything then. So start step by step, and here under this section, I would suggest you also explain that situation. You all have adaptation strategies, nation strategies. You all have adaptation policies, maybe regulations. So this is the place, again, where you can just list all these documents and plans and everything, and then like if you have any kind of priorities. Maybe for a CITS, it is more important to try to go to higher places to relocate the people living closer to the shores to some higher ground, or maybe for another country in the mountainous regions, it is something else. So this is where you will identify your national priority. No one else should do that for you. It should be you identifying and making it very visible here. And based on these priorities and the actions and the progress you want to achieve, then which plans and policies and goals and actions you have, and how are you gonna integrate them into national strategies? Actually, we are hearing a lot from countries that they sometimes have a national development strategy, 5 years, 10 years, something. And then they come up with a national climate strategy. If these are not linked, there is a risk of not being able to implement or to track, monitor it, to track the progress of these actions. So when you link them together, because the national plans, nation strategies are also somehow overseen by higher levels in the government. So when you integrate your climate change strategy into your nation strategy, there is a high probability of also being able to get some finances and funds to implement them. So that's why it is perhaps captured here, as they are also asking countries to report on the actions to integrate adaptation into national policies and strategies. Again, there is a set of list here, what can be included in this chapter, like information on implementation of adaptation actions, your adaptation goals, undertakings, plans, everything. How best the available science, gender perspectives, indigenous, traditional, and local knowledge are integrated in the adaptation-related activities. That is also important because I believe every country already has traditional knowledge. So how to use it? Like elderly people already have a way of dealing with this climate change. Actually, when you reach them, you will hear lots of solutions to your problems. So how do you also integrate that information? That is very valuable information. Oops. And then your efforts to, again, we just do this, discuss that. And then nature-based solutions. So this is also there for quite some time. Many countries are also implementing nature-based solutions. So this is the area where you can also detail those things in this chapter. And most importantly, last but not least, I would say stakeholder involvement, including local, subnationals, communities, private sector. What is happening there? How are you involving them? How are you integrating them? How are you communicating with them? What are they involved in? What do they do? So that is also important. And as we see from Corinne's presentation, I think that is great how they're also integrate, like reaching out to young people, reaching out to policymakers, the high-level people as well, because you have to inform them, update them. You have to teach them everything as well, so they will understand and they will be more willing to help you at the end as well. For example, again, from Philippines, they identified priority sectors for them. And in the BTR, then they have examples of strategies or policies for each sector. This would be perhaps different for you, right? Because you will identify your priorities. So again, under this chapter, you can set some sectoral activities, or if you have a more framework activity plan, action plan, that is also fine. You don't have to separate for each and every sector. So again, it's up to you how to present that information, but as you see, some of the countries have identified these priorities, set subsections for each, and then provided all the information for each sector. They also, I liked it very much because they also identified key enablers for action. So this is something maybe you can have a look and get some inspiration from, like they identified, like acknowledged that governance and institutions should be in place and should be coordinated. Stakeholder engagement, skills and capacity building. You have to teach the people you will ask to help you. They know nothing. Always start like that. So you will ask for some information. They have no idea what to send you. They have no idea what to share with you. So involving them, having discussion meetings, having trainings right up front, right from the beginning would really help you in this journey. Data and knowledge infrastructure. They put in place a nice data and knowledge infrastructure, planning to put in place this. And actually, it's at the long run, again, it will be very helpful in putting together managing data as well. They also identify technology and innovation as a key enabler, which I cannot agree more, and adaptation financing. How to deploy strategies for addressing climate change. We were discussing yesterday. Should we capture it in a regulation? Should we find new innovative ways to have some flows to the national budget? So, because probably we will not be able to get everything from international support, but we have to act on adaptation, right? Because it is your people, everyone is seeing it, feeling it, experiencing it. It is very urgent. You have to do something for that. People can lose elections if they cannot do this. So that is something you can also use with your very high-level people, right? To trigger action, to trigger some kind of decision that will work for you as well. So how do you identify, find new ways to also channel some public funds or private funds into these strategies and plans? Next one. Now, in this chapter, again, you may wish to provide information on the progress of implementation. What is the progress? How did you reach this progress? What did you implement? How you formulated this assessment, right? Because how are you gonna measure progress? Maybe feedback surveys, indicators, some results. You may already have identified some outcome results. So, but at the end, still you have to collect lots of information and data to be able to see these results and outcomes. So always kind of think, okay, if I'm gonna measure this, then which information I should be collecting to be able to measure this? Is there a system I should be putting in place to make my life easier? Always because it is not only for adaptation, for all other thematic areas as well. You will be collecting some financial contributions. How are you gonna track them? You will be implementing your NDC. How are you gonna track the implementation? So when you have a system that will address all of these, I think it doesn't have to be separate for adaptation, for NDC, and for finance. So also think of a more coherent system when doing that. Monitoring, evaluation of adaptation actions and processes. Yeah, we discussed this a lot. I see I also don't have a lot of time, so I will just show some examples now more. For example, Cambodia. They have a framework on tracking adaptation and measuring development at the national level as well as at the sectoral level. So they are checking sectoral level outputs, which is then also helping and contributing to their climate risk management and assessment through institutional level indicators. They also have identified some development performance like vulnerability, resilience, some securities perhaps, and then these are contributing to more resilient like economy perhaps or environment, and then it is also helping to reduce the losses, and at the end they are identifying these as change in vulnerability indicators because they are improving livelihoods, socioeconomic conditions and everything. So there is also this indicators mapping published by the Adaptation Committee, because we are hearing a lot that parties are struggling to identify the best indicators for themselves. So actually, Adaptation Committee already put together thousands of example indicators. If you're having any difficulty, just go there, just click on a sector. You will see all the indicators other parties are doing, because indicators can be quantitative as well as qualitative. So it is, again, it might be difficult, but there was this thing we were discussing with a colleague from a developing country. So he was telling me they have nothing at this moment, and they don't know how to even show progress on acting on adaptation. And apparently they have a project, they just started with it, and they only have planned a training. So what could be the indicator? And I was like, okay, maybe number of people you trained for adaptation. That's also an indicator. So you don't have to go for like the most comprehensive or detailed indicators. Just start with what you have in hand, and it will eventually evolve in the next rounds. Loss and damage. So here, again, loss and damage chapter is a very special chapter. Developing countries also didn't want to integrate it with the adaptation area because, again, here you have observed and potential climate change impacts. We also had it in the first section. You remember, observed and trends and impacts. Here we again have it, but now this is related to extreme weather events, slow onset events, drawing upon the best available example. Also the activities you are putting in place to address these trends and impacts, and any arrangements, again, you put in place. So loss and damage chapter will actually be something like, okay, I am having these events and I'm experiencing these losses and damages. And to address these, I have an activity plan, and then I have this arrangement to facilitate these activities. In some countries, this is disaster risk reduction strategies. In some countries, it is something else. Just a quick thing, I don't know if everyone knows what a slow onset event or an extreme weather event is. Does anyone need some explanation? Yeah, like for extreme events, it happens once and you got devastated. It is an extreme event, right? Cyclone. It's good. But slow onset events are happening slowly. Exactly. Biodiversity loss. You don't see it like for tomorrow, but it is happening. And you're also losing your very valuable piece of your ecosystem. So that's the difference. And then, so those are the impacts, like countries are, again, reporting, like desertification, loss of biodiversity, ocean acidification, many others, rising temperatures, extreme weather events, right? There are slow onset events. And then in extreme weather events, they're also reporting on like storms, heat waves, droughts, because droughts, it can happen in this season and you don't have food. So the prices will pick up, so you will already see it. There will be an economic loss as well as floods and tropical cyclones. So these are the things most frequently reported by countries. And then to address these things, what they are putting together can be categorized around these things. For example, they have some risk reduction strategies, DRR, or perhaps some kind of financial risk transfer activities, the insurance systems, if possible, or risk retention activities, like contingency planning, some funds, reserve funds, or other credit financing. Some transformational approaches, they are also preparing some legislative, financial, and technological systems. It can be an early warning system as well, for example. And then some enabling environments. So these are kind of some, like most frequently seen activities countries are reporting. And then in terms of institutional arrangements, again, it can be captured in the overall arrangement, or it can be a very specific expertise arrangement as well. So it is, again, up to you to identify that arrangement to report in your BTR. For example, Cambodia has provided some information, like they had faced a disaster including, list of things: flood, storm, pest outbreak, landslide, right? So what was the result, the problem, the catastrophic loss and damage they faced, like, right? How many people were dead? How many people are injured, missing? Houses are damaged. Agricultural land were damaged. Livestock lost. Roads just got washed out. So they have shared, we had an expenditure of these as well. So this is an example for example, how you can report in this chapter. Nepal also provided some information under this chapter, but from what I see, it is very actually in the beginning phase reporting in this chapter, because in the BTRs, parties reported 1 or 2 pages under this chapter, because they also are lacking the data and information, and there is a need to understand what can be reported here. So I think this will be even more comprehensive in the next BTR cycles, but these are some quick examples I can share with you. Again, it is not only financial loss, there is also human lives are lost here. So everything can be captured as a loss and damage here. And I guess you also know the difference between damage and loss. Loss is lost. Damage, you can have some actions to recover some of the damages. So there is this difference as well. And also the next information area would be cooperation with practice, experience, and lessons learned. Again, you can put the information here, relevant information, including scientific research and knowledge, because you all have excellent academia, research systems, networks. You are involved in some groups as well, so this can be also captured here. For example, what South Africa did is like they said, okay, look guys, we have a national adaptation strategy. This is the main framework we have, and this is a best practice actually, because once we put this in place, then we start to see some progress. Because it was also instrumental in addressing climate risks and reducing loss and damage, particularly in communities that are vulnerable to extreme events. However, there is a lesson learned here. Aligning national policies with effective local implementation remains a challenge, as does ensuring adequate funding and capacity at the municipal level. So this is again an area where you can narrate some insights, some experiences, some lessons learned you had in this area. And there is this any other information chapter. You can have it. You may not have it. It is up to you. But what I have seen is like what is put under this chapter by some countries is that they also have provided some information on the consultation processes they had with the stakeholders in designing for policies and implementing and everything. Some of them included transboundary climate risks, because what is happening in the neighbor country may also affect you. So they also captured it here. There are these issues with maybe rivers, some other things. So this is also something you may wish to think of. They included gender, generational perspectives, as well as justice and equity-related information and narration here as well. Some countries included information on how they are doing things with indigenous communities. Are there any specific priorities for them or policies, or how they're working together with them? Nature-based solutions, and also synergies with the SDGs. So these are kind of other information that is not captured in the MPGs, but whatever else you want to report in your BTR on adaptation can go in any of the chapters actually. Because again, with this, I actually would like to maybe conclude, like, the most important thing is, why are you reporting on your adaptation chapter? Why and what? Because at the end, this is your story, this is your narrative. So when you're looking into the MPGs and putting this information, you already have your priorities, you already have your plan. So just report on that, because again, MPGs are suggested guidelines. And then how are you gonna demonstrate what you're implementing? The things you're progressing or the things you need support for? It's again up to you, which ones you would like to highlight in this report. It depends on your strategy. And then how much information or what information you need to provide, do you wish to provide to achieve your objectives? Like the things you're planning, the things you have implemented, those specific policies, the things you're asking for help, or the things you're asking for international support. What is the narrative? And the detail, again, it's up to you on what to share and how to share it. Here, again, I wanted to give a brief overview of the best practices from BTR ones. These are most cross-cutting areas. Like there's always a centralized coordination. Coordination is a best practice, that's for sure. Centralized databases, guidelines, methodologies is shared by most of the countries. Formalized roles and synergies among policies. So these are kind of best practices, but still there are remaining challenges. Systemic institution arrangements, still many are lacking this. Concerns over timely capacity building support. There's also concern with the JEF support. It is not timely, it is not adequate, it is not to the extent we need. This is well acknowledged and well heard by the JEF. They are trying to address it in their 9th replenishment period. But again, it is also important for countries to apply to the projects at the earliest possible date, because it takes time. They are trying to simplify everything, but it takes time. It is also a remaining challenge identified by many countries, the knowledge on reporting requirements and tools. It is still lacking. Some parties are still not fully understanding the reporting requirements or how to use the available tools, including the ETF reporting tools. So that is something now in the next years we will try to address with all the partners. And a few more sneak peek into the adaptation chapter. Again, the remaining challenges are data gaps, lack of knowledge of tools and models, challenges in assessing and reporting and loss and damage, difficulties in identifying adaptation metrics. These are the top 4 challenges. And then, of course, there are some best practices like preparing national plans, integrating adaptation action into nationwide strategies, developing well-functioning, standardized monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems, the MAL systems, and then identifying adaptation indicators that are measurable and aligned with adaptation priorities, as well as implementable in a cost-effective way. So that is also something when identifying your indicators, be mindful. Again, you can have the best indicator, but if you will not be able to report on it, if it is too costly to be able to report on it, then you will be placing overburden on yourself. So that is also something to be mindful of. Yeah, so we already discussed this. I think I also don't have any more time, maybe last 5 minutes, right? 15. 45, excellent. So now we can have a QA session for 20 minutes. I was just rushing. Maybe then I can just highlight a few points, thank you. Because I think we have discussed these actually a lot. But what I want to highlight, just one thing, is that because we are discussing that adaptation is very important for developing countries. Although it is not mandatory, it is a should requirement. Like you see, 80% of the countries are reporting on it, including developed countries, because it is a livelihood issue at the end as well. So it is not mandatory, but you will report it. And again, it is also not mandatory in the MPGs, because the notion of the MPGs is to set rules to report, right? But for adaptation, there is also this understanding that it will be difficult to set these rules to tell any country to report on these in this way. It should be your priority, your preference, in the way you want to narrate it. So always think like that. When you're reporting on adaptation, you have your messages to give out. Just highlight those.